Progressive reformers saw the country and its people as a major target for modernization, and education was its main weapon. 7 forward-looking Filipinas came together in 1919 to create a school where young women could gain the knowledge and skills that would make them modern women. Paz Marquez Benitez was the first president of the Philippine Women's College. Jose Abad Santos was its first chairman of the Board of Trustees. Francisca Tirona Benitez was the second president, and with her husband Dean Conrado, guided the school from a house on A. Flores Street to its iconic Taft Avenue campus. In 1932, the college became a university, making PWU the first university for women in Asia founded by Asians. It provided a space where innovations in education flourished, and young people were encouraged to be the best that they could be. For over 100 years, the Philippine Women's University has been known as a leader in quality education. In 1934, PWU moved into its main campus on Taft Avenue, and since the 1970s has been co-educational. Located in the heart of Metro Manila, it is easily accessible by public transport and surrounded by affordable housing. Today's PWU offers undergraduate and graduate courses in several fields of study. Its business and management programs are responsive to the needs of industry, using evolving technology for global competence. PWU graduates excel in arts and sciences, education, social work, and diplomacy. Its fine arts and music programs have produced outstanding graduates through a holistic education that treasures heritage as well as excellence. PWU has pioneered in fields such as food science, nutrition and dietetics, medical technology, pharmacy, and nursing. PWU continues to play an essential role in producing graduates who possess the skills that make them competitive in the country and anywhere in the world.
A united community.
We may not be blood related,
but we Patriots are one big family.
Being part of the PWU community strengthens us.
Through the years, we support each other through good times and bad times.
We Patriots always have each other's back.
It's a big honor to be part of a community that is open to the ideas of each other.
It drives us to excel and be the best version of ourselves.
That's the standard of excellence that we Patriots strive for.
I'm thankful that this community lets us be who we want to be.
We
thrive because we accept each other for who we are.
And like a family, we treat each other equally.
Actually, PWU gave us a home and helped us to be a patriot in society.
We may have different individual drums and instruments,
But we march with the same beat together as one united community.
Do you want to march with our community of patriots?
I am a patriot.
I am a patriot.
I am a patriot. I am a patriot.
Welcome to the PWU Doctors of Hospitality Management webinar entitled Post-Pandemic Economic Recovery Strategies to Thrive in the Hospitality and Tourism Industry. To start with the program proper, let us all pause for a while for the opening prayer to be followed by the singing of the Philippine National Anthem.
We begin this prayer by putting ourselves in the presence of our Lord. Our ever-loving Father, the core of every reason, the source of truth, you who made the earth and the heavens, are the ultimate goal of every knowledge seeker, the infinite wisdom, the cause of all that is good. We are truly grateful for this opportunity to gather together in this webinar as community. Despite the challenges we face each day, yet you remain and give us strength to carry on the responsibilities of bearing intelligence and using them for better purposes. We now humbly ask you to join us in our endeavor to explore the wonders of life and the world for knowledge change. That in whatever we learn today, we become more grateful, grounded to you, who is truth, who is love. We pray that you bless our speakers, the fount of your infinite knowledge, that they can share something worthwhile. Despite the limited time we have, they can channel all they know and share to us the beauty and truth of living as your child. We pray that you guide our participants, the seekers of your boundless knowledge, that they may continue to persevere in the search and be deemed worthy to share what they will learn from today's session. Sanctify us, O Lord, not because we are worthy of it, but because we believe in your love and mercy, that at the end of today, we can take something that's amazing and meaningful. This we ask and pray through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Oh sa simoy at sa langit mong bukaw. May dilagang tulad, awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang kisap ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagdidinig. Ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may di magdidinig. Lupa ng araw ng wal at ipagsintabay langit sa piling mo. Aming ligaya na pag may mga abi ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Mabuhay, ladies and gentlemen. Is the pandemic over? Are we slowly getting back on track? Is the hospitality and tourism industry ready to take the challenge of the now normal? These are the new sets of questions we have been hearing for the past months now. After 2 years of hiding and heavy protocols, we are now down to the real resumption of the economy. And the question remains, how will the economy recover? Ladies and gentlemen, I am Chef Abram Emmanuel Peralta, a proud DHM student of the Philippine Women's University. And of course, I am not alone this morning. Introducing my co-moderator, Mr. Eugene Benicta. Sir Eugene?
Good morning, partner, and a warm mabuhay to everyone. So my name is Mr. Eugene Emmanuel Benicta, and I am also a proud PWU DHM student. And yes, partner, you are correct. We are not preparing to get back because we are back. That's why this particular webinar can be our pushing force and our guide to this new or now normal.
This is absolutely true, partner. And that is why the PWU DHM students have curated an advanced webinar for us this morning to take a sneak peek with the plans and standards expected to the companies in reviving the hospitality and tourism industry. Welcome again in this webinar entitled The Post-Pandemic Economic Recovery Strategies to Thrive in the Hospitality and Tourism Industry.
This morning, partner, we are blessed to be in the same virtual room with the experts of Philippine economics, who will explain what to expect and how the country can prosper in this era of revenge tourism. I know you are all excited, but before we further start our event, let us be reminded with some webinar etiquette through this acronym PWUU. Letter P, prepare your notes and pens to write down new and updated industry information. W, work with technology. Please feel free to use the comment section and reaction button in the FB and YouTube Live to converse well with the organizers and the speakers as we go throughout this entire event. And letter U, understand and use the knowledge and new learnings that the speakers will be sharing with us today to further improve our quest in stabilizing the Philippine economy with focus on the tourism and hospitality industry.
Thank you, Sir Eugene. A great way to recall the reminders of this webinar, P, W, and U. To all our dear audiences, are you all ready to start the program? In the Facebook Live, can we see heart reactions if you are ready? Okay, we are seeing a lot of participants right now, and I think you are ready. That is perfect to give us his opening remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, the reason behind the great recognitions of the PWU School of Hospitality Management, please help me welcome the Dean, Dr. Eframuel Jose L. Abellana. Dean Prime?
Dr. Prime is having some technical challenges in terms of giving his message. So we'll just acknowledge his presence later once he has fixed his internet connectivity. Okay, so moving forward, partner, I know everyone's excited, so I think we can start with our first speaker. So without further delay, guys, okay, to introduce the first speaker, may we call on to the virtual floor one of the organizers, Miss Joanne Abadejos Abad.
A pleasant day, everyone. I would like to introduce to you our first speaker. Our first speaker is a beautiful, young, and talented person. She finished her bachelor's degree major in tourism management at St. Louis University, Baguio City, and recently acquired her master in business administration at the University of Cordilleras, Baguio City. Driven by her passion as an accredited tour guide, she was held by the Department of Tourism Cordillera Administrative Region as one of the most outstanding tour guide last 2018. She is an active advocator of tourism economic growth in this time of pandemic in partnership with the Baguio Tourism Council. In her spare time, she hosts a morning show with RNG, or the Regional News Group Luzon. Currently, she is affiliated with University of the Cordilleras in Baguio City as tourism professor. Ladies and gentlemen, please let us welcome Miss Shekinah Cudao.
Yun. Hi, good morning everyone. Can you all hear me? Zoom participants, may I request for you to just utilize your reactions. Bigyan nyo naman ako ng heart. Pusuan nyo naman ako. Sana all pinupusuan, di ba? And for those that are watching us online, good morning. And ako bilang tour guide, we always greet everyone. Magandang Baguio. So thank you so much for inviting me. I am humbled. I am humbled to be part of this webinar. And actually, kinakabahan ako. My hands are actually trembling kanina pa. The last time that I worked with the PWU was last 2018. I was honored to guide the students because that was the inoculation of Baguio City as the only UNESCO city for folk arts. So, alam mo yung nakakatuwa. And this students are now tourism frontliners in our industry. And nakakatuwa when you see them across, they will not forget me na siya si Ma'am Sheki, siya si Ma'am Sheki. So yeah, ako nga si Ma'am Sheki. So without further ado, let's go ahead and discuss my presentation for this morning. And this will now revolve around rebuilding, rethinking, and reviving the tourism industry. And I apologize, hindi ko siya mapalaki because if I do, something happens on my end. So I've been trying to work on it earlier. However, this might pose us a challenge here during pandemic because we are not adept on which the Philippines, nakita natin that we are laid back in technology. However, this is again another breakthrough of what we can do in the industry. I'm not just speaking in behalf of the tourism industry, but everyone, including our supply chain system. So allow me to start my presentation. Oops, that's what I'm saying if I do that. All right. So this discussion will revolve about post-pandemic strategies, the iceberg system thinking, and the challenges. Probably pre and post challenges, but I see it more as an opportunity. In the tourism industry, we have been the largest growing industry before the pandemic, and after the pandemic or during pandemic, I've seen how we've been so resilient. I've seen how the tourism industry have gone through all the mockery, all the efforts that we're doing, and in that nakita ko that here in Baguio City, we're thriving. A community of people, a community of locals have gone through so much changes already. So just let me know if you have questions. You may utilize your chat to the participants, and the question and answer may come after, but just in case something, pops up, i-chat lang natin. I'm also going to be speaking in Filipino, Tagalog, Taglish, okay lang ba? Kasi ako, PhilAm ako. Do you know what PhilAm stands for? Ayan, can you hear me? Ayan, so do you know what PhilAm stands for? I'm half Filipino and half amazing. Ganon yon, di ba? So go ahead and be a PhilAm as well, katulad ko. So again, let's go start with the post-pandemic strategies, di ba? Sabi nga nila, after the pandemic is over, baka daw maging zombie tayo. Tapos sabi ko, I choose to be PhilAm, half Filipino, half amazing, kung pwede ba? Ayan, so post-pandemic strategies, I've seen this all over already. And some of these are already prominent in our industry, in other industries alike. And the hospitality and tourism industry have started doing before the pandemic started. I am happy that at least we've made sure that the tourism industry will just not end there. There is a limitation of what we can do, but after that limitation, we go beyond that. So tourism continues to be one of the sectors that is hardest to hit by the coronavirus pandemic, and the outlook remains very highly uncertain. When the pandemic started, for everyone that is watching, I was an unemployed person. Why? First, we had a small number of students enrolling, so I wasn't given a load. Second, the tourism industry closed down. I was not able to guide. And then that's it. So sabi ko, what will it be for me moving forward? So sabi ko, hindi. I would not stop there because I've seen people be on that track and hanap nila yung passion nila during this pandemic. One of the things that we did in the tourism industry, we started a virtual tour. With this virtual tour, what we did is that we started out with small numbers, with small remuneration for our service, not the same remuneration when you guide physically, but that small collection have helped people. We were able to help our co-tour guides, at least kapapaano, we were able to give them 25 kilos of rice for each 30 individuals in our team. So sabi ko sa inyo, it's not gonna end there. So from that post-pandemic strategy, I wanted to discuss the solutions. Actually, I'm not gonna focus on what is the problem, but rather our solution to what is happening. The supply chain of the future will need to be agile, flexible, efficient, resilient, and digitally networked for improved visibility. If you are not visible in this industry, then people would just forget what you've done. Organizations, therefore, tayo, our industry, should focus on these 5 priorities of recovery, and this will go beyond this pandemic. So now, the first solution that I would want to tell you is that let's reimagine the strategic architecture of your supply chain. Are you familiar with omni-channel type of distribution? Sige nga, to our participants. Yan. So the omni-channel type of distribution means that there are multiple facets of distribution and channels that we can utilize. And during this pandemic, we've redefined the supply chain in order for this strategy to alter our global networks, and we're considering new trade agreements with other countries, not just limited with the European countries and American countries, but we've diversified to make also inclusive of countries' incentives if they create a supply between the Philippines and their country. And that the omni-channel acceleration goes beyond farther. What do I mean by omni-channel acceleration? We've used virtual fitting rooms. We've adapted to virtual reality application for viewing a product. We've also allowed customers to interact with the retailer from an electronic point of view. So now we've reimagined that, how we can work on this in a foray where people can be of advantage even though they're not physically there. Another is we build transparency. This is your second solution. Let's build transparency and resiliency. The thing is that when you create transparency with everything that you're doing, it removes the disruption of your supply chain. Your improved disruption response in real-time visibility would now be something that you're monitoring from end-to-end supply chain, as well as performing scenario planning and simulations. Review your supply chain footprint. What is the alternate source of my supply right now? Are you ensuring that you do not have a geographic concentration? Do you have a niche market only because of the scarce of your supply? No. I would like to, quick sharing lang. There was this 5 students, they call themselves homeboys. And these 5 individuals, they innovated, at ang ginawa nila, they turn sayote leaves into sayote chips. As what you know, Baguio City is known for their sayotes, right? And then ang ginawa nila, since there is a surplus at hindi masyadong mahirap padamihin ang surplus, ang sayote, sabi ko nga kay mama, mangala ka na lang ita karuba tayo ti sayote, because it's prominently available from everyone. Thus, this young individual had transformed it to something that is viable. And you know what? Their product are now shipped all over the Philippines, and they're eyeing to go out to that supply chain, and they wanted to export this one to our neighboring countries. So again, you be transparent and you be resilient. The next solution is that we work into extra cash and cost from your supply chain. We eliminate process in your supply chain that impedes your growth. The Japanese have had this idea that there should be a lean operation. Lean operations mean that when there are operations in between your processes that you think is causing you more and causing you manpower, you eliminate that process. But in return, you have to make the other processes more productive in replace of that. That is lean operations. And do you know what? The first pioneer who started the lean operations was one of the largest vehicle producing car companies here in the world. Pero hindi ko nasasabihin kasi walang endorsement. Joke lang po. Ayan. So, is everybody okay? Masyado na ba akong madaldal? Ayan. So again, you extract cash and cost from your supply chain. You drive a step in your change on your supply chain and cost. You restructure it by working capital on it. What do you mean by that? We reduce working capital via supply chain segmentation, refresh inventory planning, your parameters, and the changes in your payment terms. This eliminates other processes in your supply chain that is more viable in more of your production. So the next solution that I have for you is the fourth one: create a competitive advantage with sustainability. The thing is that the future of our industry, of all industry, is circular. The economic recovery is circular, where there is no waste in your product or in your manufacturing. Explore ways to redesign and engineer new products to achieve the circular economy, and monitor third-party risk with supplier sustainability across tiers 1, 2, and 3. Another example, when the pandemic has hit our farmers here in Benguet, wala na. Most of their crops hindi na deliver to their third-party provider, and nasasayang siya. What we did is we started, or I'm sorry, not I did. What they did is that they started selling these vegetables online. Aside from that, selling it online, it eliminated the third-party provider. So the person that will purchase crops, vegetables, fruits, and whatnot is going directly to the supplier. And then si supplier will now deliver it to them. Nung lumaki itong mga ganito, itong system na to, that's the time that they hired third-party provider, which allowed local employment for our LGUs as well. Yung mga dating van, they're now operating to deliver this in a lower cost. Now, sustainable, we're thinking sustainable out of it. The last solution is that there should always be a drive in agility and opportunities for growth through a digital supply chain. To continue off what I've started it became a one-stop shop for everyone to have to digitalize this kind of motion to deliver goods from one supplier into the last producer. Work towards implementing the digital and end-to-end supply chain across planning, procurement, manufacturing, and logistics. This can now drive efficiencies, and also it can open new revenue streams for everyone. Realize this, that companies are using supply chains that is engine for growth and a key for differentiator new competition in a good way. Now, I know that many of us has hoped to end this pandemic, but the thing is that for everyone that is listening, hope is not a strategy. It's not a strategy. There are ways to stand out and better navigate the storms of the next inevitable disruptions. This includes, going back to my first solution, reimagining your supply chain strategies for risk and resilience, and finding ways to extract cash and invest in digital technologies at speed. It is also important for us to continually put humans at the center of your efforts and empower them to do extraordinary things. Finally, innovate with customers in mind through a truly sustainable supply chain. One that is designed with the circular motion of economy, which is making your supply chain sustainably. Following this path, our industry enterprises will better prepare to manage whatever crisis would come next. And I understand that rather than reacting to an individual problem that arise, get a sustainable thinking or system thinker thought that will this be the end of this pandemic, or would this happen again? And the thing is that if we stop there is no strategic works that will work for you if you do not try any. Yeah, and so that's the first part of my discussion. Okay pa ba kayo? Baka natutulog na kayo on a Saturday morning. Ayan, can I see a reaction?
Good, ma'am.
Ayan.
Very good. We're learning a lot from your first topic.
All right. Oo nga. And since natuto na kayo, nakikita niyo ba who's the person on the screen? Do you see the image on the screen? So that is my ex-boyfriend. So unfortunately, we needed to depart ways because I wasn't enough for him. Joke, I was kidding. So I wasn't enough for him, and he has now found the love of his life, which is Rose. When I remember looking at it nung bata, sige nga, what's the title of this movie? Magkaka-testing ng edad to. Sige nga, what is the title of this movie? Ayaw nilang sumagot eh. Ayan. This is
Titanic.
Yes, yun naman. Thank you po, Miss Maria. Thank you for answering. Magbibigay sana ako ng GCash, pero baka yung GCash ko kulang pa sa milk tea nyo. Di ba? The millennials call it milk tea. Anyway, milk tea and burger. Anyways, ayan. So this Titanic is a very good example of how we should rethink rather, what this pandemic has taught us. So this Titanic, this is a large boat and one of the largest cruise ship industry in that time, and that it hit an iceberg, right? And though at the tip of the iceberg, maliit lang siya, but underneath the iceberg are things that we need to consider in rethinking our economic strategy in our industry, and not just our industry, but all the industries ahead of that. So yan, the iceberg system thinking. Yan. So hindi ko nababalikan yung ex ko, don't worry about that. Nakapag-move on na ako as he have moved on already. So the iceberg thinking theory has 4 levels. Now, react, anticipate, design, and now you transform. All right, again, react, anticipate, design, and transform. All right, so on this level of thinking, let's go to a very, very simple example. Like, I'm going to give you an event. You have caught a cold kasi nanlamig siya. Just kidding. I mean, you caught a cold or a flu or something, you caught a headache. Pero hindi siya nanlamig sa akin, ako yung nanlamig sa kanya. No, just kidding. Ayan, kasi you smile more than you frown. Mas madami kang nako-consume na muscles when you smile rather than frowning. Kaya smile lang tayo. So again, my example is that nagkaroon ka ng cold, you caught a cold, and you feel bad about it. Ayan. On that specific event level, the problems observed on that specific event level is that we address it with a simple readjustment. Like when the pandemic hit, we readjusted tremendously, right? The iceberg model, the first event, pushes us not to assume that every issue can be solved by simply treating the symptom or adjusting on that specific event level. All right, again, let me repeat. You just do not simply treat the symptom. Do not just treat the symptom or adjust on that event. Because the thing is that readjustment would have to be just for that moment. However, beneath the event level is you go directly to the pattern level. Right, so in the pattern level, we look into this event where we often notice the patterns. Similar events may have been taking place over time, and we may be catching a cold because we were not resting enough. Now, observing your patterns allow us to forecast and forestall events. Ayan, nag-ML kayo. Naglaro kayo ng mga online games. Ayan, sumakit yung ulo mo. So that could be a pattern. Nanood kayo ng, what was that again? The famous Korean I'm not really familiar with any Korean drama. I apologize for you, but I respect your choices of viewing. Ano ba, magbigay kayo ng isang Korean segment sa akin. Please help me. Ano ba?
Squid Game.
Ayun, Squid Game. Ayan. So, yan, napuyat ka. Pinanood mo yung buong episode ng Squid Game. And unfortunately, yan nga, you caught a cold. Obvious na hindi talaga ako nanonood. Pero, yun. So, that could be a pattern. Since paulit-ulit mong ginawa yan, you've done that for a couple of days, now you caught a cold. So that has been your pattern, right? Going now to your third level, you now, now you look into the structure level. So below your pattern is you now identify the structure level wherein what is causing this pattern that you are observing. The answer is usually some kind of a structure. There could be an increased work that causes stress, the habit of not eating or you're eating poorly when you're under stress, the inconvenient of location of your healthy food. This could be structures on how you do it. However, according to Professor John Gerber, Gerber. Ayan. He's from Utah University. The structure should be identified or should be viable with physical things, organization, policies, and ritual. Yan yung mga structure that identifies going back to the structure, going to your pattern. So after your pattern, your structure is underneath it. Para talaga siyang iceberg. Tinitignan mo lang siya at a very, very shallow looking. Na ito lang yung iceberg, but you're just actually looking at it. The structure is underneath it that you have to address, right? The last after the iceberg, the structure level is your mental model level. The thing is that with your mental model level, this is your attitude, your belief, your moral, your expectations, your values that allow your structures to continue functioning as they are. These are the beliefs that we often learn subconsciously from our society, our family, and that we are unlikely aware of. Your mental models that could be involved in us catching a cold include a belief that a career is deeply important to our identity, or that our healthy food is too expensive, or that the rest is for the, and if you rest, you are unmotivated. Going back to these terms, this is how we should see our economic recovery. Going back on this specific module, the system thinking iceberg now allows us to react from the event, anticipate when this may happen again, now redesign or design things that would help us identify a better structure if it may happen again. And now let's transform it to something that is sustainable and resilient for everyone. Nakakatuwa lang kasi this pandemic have taught us so many things. I, for one, myself, I do not believe that this pandemic would just end in a snap of a finger. Sabi nila, predictions 2022, and some of the students are worried, what will happen after the pandemic? Do I have a job with this after the pandemic? And the thing is that all of you are just reacting at the first level of the iceberg. You're just reacting, but you miss on the rest of it, right? So that is the second half of my discussion. I hope you are still awake. Yan. I hope you're still awake. Ako kasi gising na gising ang diwa ko. Ayan. Kidding aside. So now let's go into some of the challenges. Can I see some reactions from the chat? Baka tinulugan nyo na pala ako. You're snoring na pala there. Wow, English Tagalog talaga. Ayan. Thank you so much. And sponsored po tayo ng Aviant. Naghanap ng sponsor. Just kidding. Aviant is, sabi nga nila, diba, have neuro something that helps us for pandemic. Anyways, alive and kicking. We are alive via Facebook stream and YouTube of PW. Thank you, Miss oh my God. Ma'am Evelyn, thank you po. Ala, kinilig ako. Ayan, kinilig ako. Thank you, Miss Evelyn. Anyways, since kinikilig ako kay Ma'am Evelyn, let's go ahead and look into the challenges here in the tourism industry. But the thing is that we do not stop with the challenges. We are only driven by the challenges because we are opportunity driven. Would you believe that, saglit lang, nag-notes pala ako. Would you believe that we actually operate into the tripartite motivational system, which is inclusive of PPE? Alam niyo ba yung PPE? Pleasure, pain avoidance, and energy conservation. So we are driven by those. And this pandemic, we've seen that the tripartite motivational system goes beyond that. Now, sabi nila, one of the things that we have in challenge for is digitalization. Ayan, buyoy yan. Bulul, buyoy ako yan. Digitalization, all right. The movement of digitalization here in the Philippines was very saddened because during the onset of the pandemic, we do not know how we look into it, right? Other countries have already formed a system for themselves. NAIA have already devised a system where they have a full scanner and identifies if you are sick or whatnot. Here in Baguio City, we were the first city in the Philippines who prompted digitalization. We partnered with a specific phone company, Huawei, and we became the smart city here in the Cordillera region. What do I mean by that? We started with, tayo, di ba? We started with QR code. We started tracking people through QR code or the Stay Safe app. Ayan. So are you using this application? Sige, tawa lang kayo dyan. We're not everyone might have an access to use this application, but this is the first step in our digitalization. Another that we have devised here in Baguio City is this Baguio Visita app. This Baguio Visita app tracks all the tourist arrival coming here in Baguio City. So you need to log in to book in an accredited hotel so that they can provide you a QR code, and this QR code will be your pass going into Baguio City. So yeah, no, we have, and I know in respective provinces and regions, you have also devised such application, right? And I may not know some, I may not be familiar with some of that, but I've seen La Union has their own system. In Ilocos, they also have their own system. So digitalization could be a challenge, but as an opportunity for a growing supply chain, allowing delivery from all over the parts of the Philippines. Sige nga, can I see a reaction for those na nabogus na ng Shopee? Sige na, wag na tayo, tanggapin na natin that at one time, naging marupok tayo. Sige na, wag kayong mahiya. I would say yes ako din. Ayan, diba? Uy, may mga nag-thumbs up. Yung iba, bakit umiiyak? Okay lang yan. Okay lang yan. But the thing is that we're changing it, right? I mean, it could be a challenge for those that are buying online. However, nakita nyo ba how they become so descriptive in what they're selling, that including the size, including the height, the color, they're now looking more into more realistic approach when you're buying something online, diba? That's because of digitalization. So, diba, meron ka nakitang comment na, yung binili ko sa inyo, akala ko malaking aparador, yun pala aparador ng toy doll, diba? But the thing is that we've diversified it in a way na lahat tayo, alam na natin yung description ng isang bibilhin mo, the actual color, the actual size, because through digitalization, we've used that already in our industry. Okay, let's use it in the tourism industry. What was the tour guide's role in the Baguio Visita app? They got our profile. They got the profile of tour guides and they put it in the Visita app. So the guest can book us through the Visita app. Diba? Nakakatuwa kahit pa paano. Pa-isa-isa man yan, padala-dalawa. At least you have something that you can do for a month, right? And if we are permitted, we could do it for twice a month. Yan. So, bakit pa ako lalayo? We started also with the vaccination, right? Digitalization. Ang ginawa nila, aside from digitalization, there's also mobility in this. Kasi, dinala nila ang vaccination sa mga remote places, and I've seen that already all over the Philippines. Kaya tayo ngayon, almost 80% of the population of the Philippines have already received their second vaccine, which is something that may be slow in part of our digitalization, but it's ramping up in a few months from now. Sabi ko nga, baka we're good to go. Now let's go to other challenge in your supply chain. Again, I don't see it as a challenge really, but rather an advantage for everyone, right? So this is your traditional supply chain. Yeah, kikita nyo ba siya? So we have the procurement, we have the operations management, and then the consumer. There would be sometimes a downstream, but we go back to the demand. And now upstream again, yeah, upstream, going back again to your procurement, operations, consumer, and that traditional model continues on from it is, right? However, the thing is that it doesn't end there, right? So your supply chain, will always have a positive momentum, which is segmented into 4. And malapit ako matapos, overtime na nga ata ako, but allow me to just go through it very quickly lang. So the positive momentum of our supply chain during this pandemic is that we're achieving an end-to-end visibility. We're now utilizing farmer to table kind of relationship with our farmers. Albeit the changes in the farming industry, we've seen that our farmers are going direct, our suppliers and consumers are going directly to our direct supplier, eliminating your second traditional model, the operations management. Diretso na. Bakit pa ako gagamit ng third party if I can do it directly? There's end-to-end visibility on that. Next is that we're eliminating paperwork and other hands-on, hand-off. So we're removing the use of paper trails already, as most of our transactions are done online. There's already a soft copy of your transaction. However, personally, traditionally, dapat pa rin meron tayong hard copy when this happened. However, it may be a challenge, but it is something that is more advantageous for other. Paano pag we can work remotely, just share one link, one Google link. You can now track all of this instead of paper trails. Meron sana akong gagawing example, pero baka kasi tawanan niyo ako. Anyway, sasabihin ko na rin naman. I was invited for a speaking engagement in one of the universities down in Mindanao. And the discussion is about mobilization or digitalization. So they asked me, they would want to give me a honorarium. Tas sabi kong ganun, okay, no problem po. So ang process daw ng university is that they will send a document to me via land transportation, and then I would have to sign it and then send it back again. Tas ang sabi ko, that the thought of digitalization was removed. Kasi sisend mo, ibabalik ko. So ano nang mangyayari? So nakakatuwa lang kasi they would still want paperwork. So in my behalf, oo nga no, ibabalik mo, tas ibabalik ko, tas ibabalik niyo ulit. So sabi ko, okay. Sabi ko, can I just take a picture or place my e-signature? Ay, hindi daw pwede kasi ganun yung process. So sabi ko, hindi ko na inano. Kasi sabi ko, okay. They still like paperwork, which is still a good thing for them. Probably working for them as well. Another is that we're increasing the use of automation. Auto bill payment or auto deduction. Yung mga Netflix nyo, naka-integrate na siya sa payment platforms. Your bills are now integrated on automatic payments. When we receive payment with our customers, we use GCash. We have tourism attractions here that you only have to scan the QR code and automatically it will deduct on your GCash. How much is your entrance fee for that specific attraction? There's automation already in everything that we're doing in our industry. And lastly is that we're embracing agile, either the scale, asset, or scope of your agility. The scale of what you're doing is a prompt to your asset. And from your asset, it's prompting to your scope agility. We're being agile in form of the broadness of what we can cover in this industry. So I don't see it as a challenge, but rather an opportunity to find resiliency in everything that we do. Again, part of your positive momentum. Last is human capital. I think sana buhay pa kayo. Ay, buhay pa. Sana gising pa kayo rather. And that this is just very quickly lang. I'm just going to run down on each of this. Give me 5 more minutes. Ayan, di ba? Sabi kasi sa inyo, wag niyo akong iimbitahin kasi madaldal ako. Ayan. So, parang yung, yan. So, last is that human capital may be a challenge. However, it is giving us so much opportunity. I don't want this to sound that I'm bragging, but during the pandemic, I was able to obtain 2 more jobs aside from my primary job. because of human capital. Yan. So as sabi nga kanina, I am a program host of a morning show that starts from 6:30 to 8 in the morning. In late nights between 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. nagtututor ako ng Japanese students. So human capital, because we work remotely already, which is the number one advantage of human capital right now. There's increase in remote working, right? I know you've seen this meme that there was one time a guy is in a parachute or paraglide, right, rather. Tapos dala-dala niya yung laptop niya. So sabi niya, sending na yung email, sir. Diba? Because we can work remotely now. We have now the liberty to work in our convenience. Except kung deadlines, except kung teachers tayo, diba? But the thing is that there is a shift on the traditional type of working to now remote working. Next is that there is a contingent worker expansion. We've now identified more segment or more type of employees. Hindi na lang, we have part-time, we have contractual, we have other types na there have been an expansion of how we look into our human capital. The thing is that kung hindi tayo mag-adjust in the form of this, your human capital will go down. And that we have to understand that employees are still being monitored, and there should always be a good way of communication with that. While some companies rather track productivity, others monitor employee engagement and well-being to better understand their employee experience. Next is that there is an expansion of employer role as social safety net. Yan. Alam ko, some of us have heard that there are, they have friends that are unemployed, or because the pandemic have struck, wala ng employment. But the thing is that your contingent worker expansion, this economic uncertainty of the pandemic has caused many workers to lose their jobs and expose others for the first time to non-standard work models. Many organizations responded that the pandemic's economic impact by reducing their contractor budgets, but there has been a shift from there. Ang ginawa kasi natin dyan, we considered introducing other job models, skeletal workforce, para hindi tanggalin yung ibang employment, or they allowed their employees to get a different job, a part-time job, and with that, there is a talent sharing from your employees that allows them to reskill this pandemic as well. Ayan, titigil na ako dahil 9:28 na. Just a few more. Separation of critical skills and roles. Ayan. So kanina we have used the word that we now talent share, and that's something that I've seen here in our industry. We've shared our premises, our hotels, naging isolation facilities siya for others, diba? For our OFWs or everything, because we wanted to make use of these hotels for something more viable. So your separation of your critical skills is now allowing you to pursue more from your capabilities, so that an organization need to still go on their strategic skill. Now, employers are realizing that there is another category of critical roles, which is roles that are to success for your essential workers. We rebuild them, you let them hone their skills, you let them regroup, you let them take advantage of unrelated skills, but in the future, they can use it for themselves. Yung talagang nakita kong we've seen that through the course of pandemic. The next is that we're dehumanization or humanization of employees. Gone are the days that we have employers that are, just there for work. I am just here for work. But this pandemic, we've seen humanity flourish in all our facets of industry. 'Diba? Sabi ko nga kanina, skeletal workforce so that they can keep their employees. They have devised other related work schedules para lang andito pa rin yung empleyado nila. The sixth is one, there is an emergence of new top-tier employers. Sabi nila, the limitations of our homes is not your limitations. And dun ko nakita that some of employees can work home and more progressively when they're at home rather than in the pressure in their offices. So they're now at the top tier, top performance employees because they're able to balance their personal life and professional life here at the comfort of their homes. Diba? Malapit na po talaga ako. I just need 2 na lang. Ayan. There's also a transition from designing for efficiency to designing for resilience. We're not just efficient workers, but we are also resilient workers. Sabi nga nila, you work smart, you work happily, you work smart. Because the thing is that if you are not resilient, then you're not efficient. Diba? Kaya to all the faculty members that may have been watching, don't make it up to the point where it consumes you. Yan, kasi we need to check the papers, ganyan. During yung onset ng online distance learning, I created a separate account for my students because my messenger doesn't stop until the middle of the night, which you understand why. Mas magandang internet connection and that's the only time that they rest for the day. Last is that there is an increase in organization complexity. Complexity in forms of working hours, shifting hours. We've also been deliberately looking into what could be mindful and effective to our employees with long-term and short-term goals, being resilient to them. So to end this talk, I will not ask a question because I think it would be for later. An average person lives 29,000 days in their lives. Huwag nyo nang in-compute by year ha. Ayan. So let's all deduct the things that we do in that 29,000 days. So that's inclusive of 97,000 of sleep, 3,800 and yada 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 yada. The list will go on. So that's 23,502 days left, or deducted from your original 29,000 days. Now you're only left with 5,498 days. So mamaya mag-iisip na kayo, saan madededuct yung pag-CCR ko, saan deduct yung pag-social media ko or panonood ko. My question now is that I would like to leave everyone a question. With the 5,498 days, what do you plan to do with your life? Do you plan to be there on the boundaries of your limitations, or you would go beyond that limitations to reach something more renewable and sustainable after it? So thank you so much for having me. I apologize for taking so much of your time. Sabi ko sa inyo ang daldal ko eh.
Not yet, ma'am. Not yet.
Ooh, all right. Sorry for
Yes,
that.
ma'am. It's okay na po. We can
Okay
see.
na?
Okay.
Yan.
Ayan, may Light of the North na. Nag-endorse.
Yeah, we can see you na, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am. Actually, we garnered some questions and live questions actually from our FB participants and YouTube participants, and we filtered some questions we think that is actually appropriate and very relevant to your topic. They are very active in FB Live. If you can see, ma'am, the first question actually states, are you ready, ma'am?
Go ahead po.
Since 2022 is a recovery year for both the tourism and hospitality industries, may we hear or know some strategies which do you think will help in meeting the needs of the guests in the new normal? So more on preparation of the economy in Baguio, to be specific, for the new normal. Ma'am?
Oh, that is a good question, and I like the question. Kung sino man yung nagtanong, you may leave the forum already. Just kidding. Just kidding. No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I am very grateful for the question. And right now, the hotels are preparing for new tourists. And for everyone's knowledge, Panagbanga is going to be held this March, starting tomorrow. And bubuksan po namin ang newly renovated Botanical Garden tomorrow. We will be there. I will be guiding for our VVIPs. And in response to our hotel industry, ang ginagawa nila ngayon is that onset of the pandemic, they've allowed the hotel to be used as isolation facility, as what I've mentioned earlier. Now, what they're doing is slowly transitioning them. And with a small budget, they were able to refurbish some of parts of their hotels. They've also introduced alfresco dining sa hotels nila if they have restaurants. They've devised it in a way that there is also green infrastructure in some of the hotels here in Baguio City. They've now added more plants, something that is more reliving. And the one thing that I've also seen is that they embraced the culture more of the Cordillera region, infusing tradition of here in the Cordillera. Last is that slowly they're transitioning from 50% capacity to now 80% capacity for accepting tourists. The most prominent that they've used now is yun nga, there should be a QR code system. That I believe is one of the things that could help transport, and also allow us to track our guests in whatever they would be doing in the future. Yun po.
Thank you so much, Ms. Shakaina. Green. It's more on green tourism, yes. Revitalizing technology. We saw this. We all actually saw this in Baguio. Parang Baguio is really the most eager city at the time of the pandemic that would like to resume, right? Actually, there is a second question to be asked by Sir Eugene. Sir Eugene?
Yeah. Okay. Hi, Ms. China. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah. So, also with us today is our professor for the advanced economic, managerial economic course for our BHM program. So, let me acknowledge our professor, Dr. Ed Moreno. So, good morning, sir. Good morning, Doc. So, Ms. Shakaina, here's another question. Okay. So, in rebuilding the Philippine tourism industry, how do you think can the practitioners and the academe help in bringing back the tourism economic growth?
That's a well-thought questions. Sir Ed, ikaw bang nagtanong yan? Sir Ed, thank you. Sir Ed, thank you for your time. You may leave the forum. Tinanggal yung mga nagtanong. I'm just kidding. So, the tourism industry have always been known to be so resilient. I know you've heard this a lot. I know parang sa nagpapantig na yung tenga ko for that. But in preparation to addressing this in the future, ako as a tourism professional in a tourism frontliner also during the pandemic, the only thing that we can do is for us to encourage this young culture bearer to stay with the industry. Because the thing is that they are so afraid, again, with the system iceberg model earlier, they were just looking at the event level. But underneath it, they do not see the advantage of staying in this industry. So I always tell to everyone that there would always be something for you after the pandemic. So most likely, I know it may not be relevant as an economic recovery, but when you encourage them to stay here, stay put here in this industry, they will be the future of our industry. And that is another recovery in our end. Keeping our numbers afloat this pandemic helps us to recover after this. Kasi the lesser the people works together, the lesser that there is an economic recovery, right? So just stay afloat, stay there. Mag-TikTok lang muna kayo if you wanted to. Just stay afloat in the industry. I'm sorry, that's just a joke. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I totally agree, Miss Shekaina, and sobrang inspiring yung kwento ng Baguio in terms of tourism resilience. I believe Baguio talaga yung nag-pioneer ng ilan sa mga good practices in terms of coping with this current adversity that we are facing, the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yes. Sir Eugene, ano nga po may for sale ngang property dito? Only for 5,000 pesos. However, automatic.
Nabalitaan ko yan, ma'am.
Oo, may kasama kayo during, kahit mag-isa nyo, may kasama kayo pag gabi. No, just kidding.
I heard that, that advertisement sa sobrang murang bahay. I think it's a bahay.
Yes.
Yeah.
But Sir Eugene, in fairness to that, it has a very rich history in the culture of Baguio City. But it was just a pun. But maganda yung story ng Laperal House, and it brings forth really shedding the life after any failure talaga.
Thank you so much again, Ms. Kudo, for answering those questions. Actually, we have a final question for you, and afterwards we can resume our question and answer later on. But maybe on an easy part, we know that Baguio is actually, as Sir Eugene said, Baguio is one of the early cities to respond in technology, in terms of technology, in terms of resumption. Now that we're coming back, more than 100% we are coming back. Does this technology still being used by Baguio, and is it affecting economic strategies of the city, Ma'am Shekaina?
Right. Thank you, Sir Eugene, and thank you, Sir Abraham. Bakit po kayo nagtatanong ng ganyang mga tanong? Sir, you may leave na din. Just kidding. So, surprisingly, I might have mentioned that we are the first city to become a smart city here in the Philippines. So this is to stay regardless the pandemic will be over. We are still utilizing the Visita app. In fact, the Visita app is offering more options and more service so that tourists can digitalize and customize their needs in that specific application. So I believe, again, I don't see it as a challenge. It posed as an opportunity for Baguio City. Baguio City is a small city. It is only by prime property 52.25 square meters. However, with that being cramped, we're able to get an understanding of the movement of people. Kaya nga, if you've noticed, maririnig nyo over the news that Baguio City has number of cases na madami, pero it will go down in a few weeks' time because we're utilizing these platforms in ways where people are tracked. We are using it. Here, some of our malls here do not ask you to sign anymore. They just ask for your vaccination card, you scan your QR code, and you're done. And I think it's something that I'm proud of, but I am more proud because Filipinos have seen this. And one of the students that I came across is that they also had this technology being procured at this time with the OST, with just your fingerprint, they will now identify your stats, your statistics, your temperature, your body mass, your height, your weight. Tapos sabi ko sa kanya, can you please not include me in your respondent? Baka sabihin niyo obese ako. And they were just all laughing. But the thing is that is one way. They're just waiting for the budget for that. But digitalization is here to stay. And I hope everybody could also adapt on this. I'm not saying that Baguio City is very eager to really move people, but because that is the core of our industry, tourism. Thank you.
That I agree, Ms. Shakaina. Technology, digitalization is here to stay. Ms. Shakaina, maraming salamat for your presence today. We will be asking you to stay and also to remain for the next Q&A set of Q&A questions. Ladies and gentlemen, to all of our FB Live friends and also YouTube Live friends, and that is Miss Shakaina Cudao. We will see you again on a beat, ma'am, for the open forum. And now to introduce our second speaker, may we call on the virtual floor one of our DHM organizers, Miss Evelyn Velasco. Ma'am Evelyn.
Pleasant day, everyone. I am honored and pleased to present to you our guest speaker for today. He earned certificate in management at the Amesdale Management University, Singapore in October 2008. He finished Bachelor of Christian Education at the Theology University, Manila, Philippines in June 2009, and a diploma in Business Management at Stonebridge Associated College, Alberton Management School at Singapore in March 2009. He also finished a degree in Master in Business Administration at the Ateneo Graduate School of Business, and currently he is the Vice President for Human Resources and External Affairs at the Pines International Academy Incorporated in Baguio City, where he monitors 420 faculty members and 100 non-academic staff on their performances. He is also the corporate president of Cebu Blue Ocean Academy Incorporated, a former faculty member way back 2011 at the Philippine College Northwestern Luzon, where he conducted and facilitated classes related to labor relations and negotiations, environmental management, marketing management, microeconomics and management problem and analysis, and strategic management. Among his notable achievements are the following. Firstly, national champion for impromptu speaking by Toastmasters International. Number 2, awarded and recognized as a high performance leader, advanced communicator, and advanced leader by Toastmasters International. Another one is a speaker and presenter in various education symposia, locally and abroad. A partner and active supporter of the Department of Tourism Product and Development Group. A consistent champion speaker in various speech categories on international prepared speech, speech evaluation, and humorous speech. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Mr. Reuben L. Aslor. A virtual round of applause, please.
Wow, thank you so much. That is an awesome introduction. I appreciate that a lot. And first and foremost, to start with, allow me to say good morning to each and every one of you. It is a joy and at the same time a privilege for me to be invited by each and every one of you in this wonderful seminar and training that you are conducting for this particular class. All right, now to start with, and just to warm the floor up a bit right now, okay, let's just go ahead and accede to the directions that were given by our beloved presenter of yours truly. Guys, can you give me a warm round of applause right now? Like, can you give a warm round of applause, a virtual round of applause right now? And I want to make sure to it that all of you are very, very much alive and kicking. Thank you so much, Mr. Abraham Peralta. That is awesome with the video on. That is awesome, right? What about the others? You know, I'm actually quite curious right now to see how each and every one of you are looking like. So do me a quick favor. Can you turn on your cameras really, really quick? And I want to see everyone's faces at the moment. Nice one, Sir Eugene. Ang gagwapo naman pala talaga ng mga taga-PWU. All right, awesome. It's great to meet you, Sir Ram, Sir Edgar. We've got Sir MB right there. Ang formal naman talaga. And of course, the ladies, mga hindi talaga nagpapahuli sa gandang meron sila. I am quite confused right now. I heard that all the students that I have here in this group are PhD students, right? Bakit parang mukhang mga 19 years old lang kayo? Wow! All right. Okay, so it's great to be meeting each and every one of you. And again, I would like to extend my appreciation to all of you for this wonderful invitation. I mean, I've been invited by PWU here in Baguio to do some talk, but right now, having this particular group, which I believe is a very dynamic group, is driving me nuts with my energy, which I hope you can feel in your end right now. Okay, so let me start by sharing my screen with you at the moment, okay? And I'd like to talk about some important matters that I hope would be helpful for each and every one of us right now. Okay, so first and foremost, allow me to talk about strategic recovery. While I was listening to the Q&A that you were having earlier, I was actually amazed with all the different questions that were thrown to Ms. Shekinah, the answers that are very, very prompt that were given to each and every one of you. But right now, if I may humbly ask you, allow me to share with you some other inputs and some other thoughts that I believe would be able to help us in general, not just in the hospitality and the tourism industry, but as different organizations, as individuals as well. You heard it right when it was basically introduced earlier that I am an active partner of the Department of Tourism Market and Development Group. In fact, yesterday, or not yesterday, just the other day, we had a meeting with Director Rene Reyes, the Market and Development Group Director of the Department of Tourism, alongside with Mayor Magalong to discuss some plans that are related with the recovery of Baguio City, most especially in the area of tourism. But then, you know, all throughout the past 2 years that we have been going through the hustles of this pandemic, there are a lot of things that I believe each and every one of us learned, right? There are a lot of things that I believe all of us have actually gotten pieces and bits of lessons about, which I believe are teaching us a lot of lessons that we are going to be carrying as we go on with our lives and probably as we go through the endemic now. All right. Now, let's talk about strategic recovery. Bigger question there is, when we talk about strategic recovery, it's a very, very broad term. You talk about strategic recovery, there are a lot of things that we're going to be talking about. But then the bigger question that all of us would be asking is, how, right? How do we recover strategically? With all the things that have happened during the pandemic, how are we going to recover strategically? As I always say, it's easy to say things. Maybe it's even easier to say things, but it's more difficult to put them into action, right? Like what we always say, kaya natin tong pandemic na to. But when we say kaya natin tong pandemic na to, we would definitely see that a lot of people, businesses, organizations, industries were actually knee-bent when this pandemic struck. Immaterial of the industry, whether that would be the hospitality industry, the education sector, the academia where I come from, you will see that there are basically a lot of industries that were knee-bent during the time of this pandemic. So right now, humbly, I would like to share to you some of the things and the best practices that our organization adopted in order for us to cope with the challenges of the pandemic. So to start with right now, there are two basic points that I would like to share with you. And at the latter part of my discussion, I will be talking about and I will be sharing about maintaining our human capital and reinforcing our human capital to ensure that we strategically recover amidst this pandemic. Now, guys, March 2020, I'll be a little dramatic right now, okay? If you could remember, in March 2020, this was the time when the government declared and they started implementing strict quarantine status in Luzon. I remember during this time when all the foreigners in the country were going crazy. They were so worried. Everybody was rushing to the airport just to leave the country, right? And during this time, after the implementation of the strict quarantine measures, you would realize that the roads were empty. As roads were emptied, as businesses were basically temporarily closed, this brought a lot of challenges. This brought a lot of fears to each and every one of us. These brought results that were basically unexpected. I remember our chief executive officer when he mentioned, when the pandemic started, we thought it would only last for about 2 weeks. So we were all confident. We were like saying, this is just going to be for 2 weeks. This won't last long. But then after 2 weeks, it was extended for another 2 weeks. And it was extended for another month. From ECQ, it became MECQ, it became MGCQ, it became GCQ. Kulang nila mag-add sila ng barbecue, banana Q, kamote Q. Lahat ng Q pwede mo na idagdag, right? But it extended beyond our imagination. It went beyond our time frame. The results, business went out of operations, right? Even our company itself, we needed to declare temporary cessation of operations during the time of the pandemic. And logically speaking, when businesses went off, people lost employment, right? A lot of people were displaced. A lot of people were retrenched. Even some of the finest restaurants in the city of Baguio, even some of the strongest business establishments, they needed to bow down before the pandemic and they needed to shut down their operations. After that, what happened? People started worrying. We started borrowing money from other people. And we actually got worried about the situation. Even our economy went down. It went on a downward spiral during the time of the pandemic. Now, to have a quick sharing, okay, to have a quick sharing before we finally talk about the next topics that I'd like to share right now, I'd like to hear from each and every one of you, okay? I believe that all of you can type really, really fast right now. Here's my question for each and every one of you. And I'm going to be reading through what you're going to be encoding, and I'd like you to actively participate in this. When the pandemic struck, can you share what was your biggest fear, right? When you heard that there's this pandemic, we're going to be starting to shut down businesses, we're going to be closing down businesses, different quarantine status are going to be implemented. What came to your mind? What was your fear during this time? Can you encode it, guys? Sir Jeremiah said, losing my job, losing job opportunities. I certainly agree. We share the same fear. What about the others? What were your fears during this time, right? So 2 of you said they were worried about losing jobs and job opportunities.
Recording in
If you're going to
progress.
be able to send a question really, really quick, the top 3 senders would be receiving a prize from me virtually. Wow, wait a prize. Right, come on, what about the others? What were the fears and what were the worries that you had in mind during the time of the pandemic, right? Come on, let's hear from the others. Okay, so 2 said losing their jobs. What about the others? I want to hear from you. Right? Sila Ma'am Doreen, okay? Sila Ma'am Riza, right? Sila Sir, okay, health and safety of my family, according to Ma'am Raquel Ann Lim. My health, right? Yeah, that's actually very, very logical. We were also worried about this. Anyone else, right? Health effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Yes, death of loved ones and family, safety of family members, all right? Other concerns? Do you have any other fears that you wish to share? Thank you so much to all those who are sharing, Ma'am Doreen and Sir MB, all right? Okay. Anyone else who would like to share something about their worries and their fears? Gaining weight, gaining weight while not gaining profit, job security, okay? Yeah. I definitely agree. Investments, okay? I definitely agree with all these, all right? Now, you would notice that during this time, to all those who shared, thank you so much for your thoughts and your inputs. Basically, during the time of the pandemic, all of us had our own fears and all of us have our own worries or had our own worries during this time. But one thing that we learned during the time of the pandemic is we needed to learn how to shift. We needed to learn how to have a paradigm shift, move our mindset from the current situation we were having back then, and we needed to look forward to newer things that we know would be able to help us. We knew that we needed to think of other ways in order for us to move forward, right? Teaching difficulty, I agree with that. In fact, I myself was challenged during the start of the pandemic because I am also teaching in a college. And as I was teaching, when they were telling us to start using the internet, they told us to start using different platforms in teaching. I kind of got worried because I'm not like you who are 19 and 20 years old in this group, right? So there was this fear. But then we recognized that we needed to shift. And where did we need to shift? We needed to shift with digitalization, right? Probably in the earlier part of this discussion or during the earlier part of this training or seminar, there were several pointers that were shared. But this time, allow me to reinforce those pointers that were shared a little bit further. Just facts, right? Just facts. We all want, right? All of us will definitely agree when we say we all want to be modern, right? We all want to advance. We all want to perform better. We all want to be able to adjust with technology. All of us will definitely agree with this. Further, we would say we all want to be better. But one reality is this: we are all afraid of change, right? And that's one thing in the musical Jekyll and Hyde, okay? In the musical Jekyll and Hyde, it was said by the main actor or the lead actor that the only thing constant is change. When we know that the only thing constant is change, you would realize that it's actually one of the things that we know is existing, but we are also very much afraid of. So let's start talking about this. When we had to shift from the former situations and setups that we had, we needed to recognize the fact that we needed to advance and we needed to adopt with digitalization. Now, allow me to share to you our sense worth, my sense worth in our company. Being the Vice President for Human Resources, it was basically my job during the time of the pandemic to ensure that everybody would be encouraged to go with us as we needed to shift. Just to let you know, our company is basically an academic institution, right? So as it was mentioned earlier, I am basically handling about 400 employees in the branch that we have here in Baguio and about 200 employees in the branch that we have in Cebu. Now, the bigger question there is when we were telling them, guys, we need to shift from this approach in teaching, we're going to be moving on to this particular platform in teaching our students. Many of them were worried. But the question there is, how did we deal with it? First, we needed to let them understand. Don't you know that according to Business Udemy, right, these are the top 10 skills that are required right now in the world as of 2020. These are the top 10 skills that many people would look into. These are the top 10 skills that most likely, if you have them, you will definitely never run out of opportunities. What are these? Top 1, sales skills. Take note, top 2, Excel. Let's take a look at top 4, web development, and go on to top 7, SQL. 3 out of the 10 that are basically looked for by employers, most especially during this time, are related with digitalization. These things are very, very much important for us to recognize in order for us to move forward and be able to cope with the challenges that are posed before us post-pandemic setup. Now let's continue. How did we actually encourage everybody to adopt with digitalization? First thing that we did is to acknowledge that there's a need for digitalization. We needed to let everybody understand that, hey guys, it's either this way or no way at all. It's either we do it this way or we're all going to be losing our jobs, or we're not going to be having any sources of income, and we're not going to be having opportunities in the next 2 years, and we're not going to be shifting. That is the reality that we needed everybody to understand. We needed to let them know and acknowledge the importance of digitalization in our company. We needed to let them know that we must lean towards the fact that idea that at present, the world is shifting its market to digital platforms. Digital is basically here, and it is here to stay, right? Let's take one very, very good point and one very, very good example, right? Guys, let's try this, okay? What do you think is one business that really soared during the time of the pandemic? Okay, can you at least name one? One business that really soared during the time of the pandemic. Can you type it in our chat box right now? What is one business that really soared and that really went up in terms of profit during the time of the pandemic? Bingo, Sir Abram Peralta, right? You got it so right. I actually thought that the answer of Sir Abram Peralta was the best, but I kind of missed this part. According to Sir Eugene, it's the face mask and the face shields. Absolutely. Right? Yes, I would go for that. But then next to the face masks and the face shield, it was actually delivery, Grab, Food Panda, right? These were businesses that really soared in terms of profit. That is correct, Ma'am Riza and Ma'am Evelyn, food delivery and delivery services. When all the people were not able to move out from their homes, when people were confined and quarantined inside their homes, what was the best help that came along our way? Ta-da! Food Panda, Grab, food delivery, right? These were businesses that really soared during the time of the pandemic. But take note, would this have been possible? And would these businesses be able to deliver fastly and swiftly if they did not foresee the importance of digitalization? Probably no. Probably right now, the method of delivery would be calling and then telling them, I have a delivery and I live in this address. And before you finally place your order, you will feel like you need to go through a process of a job interview. But because of digitalization, things have become faster and things have actually become swifter. So what's the first thing? Related with digitalization, we must let people know and acknowledge that this is a need. This is not just something that is an option. Rather, it is a need for us to move forward after this pandemic. What is the second way that we did in order for our employees to accept this? We need to let them know what digitalization means for us as a company and for them as employees, right? Like sometimes people would say, I can text, most especially the older people, trust us, right? About 30% of the population of our employees, their ages are actually from 40 going up, right? And these are very, very good faculty members. These are very good employees. But you know, when we shifted to digital, when we shifted our platforms online, many of them decided not to be with us for the meantime. They said, we want to go back to work when things are already normal. And just like the profile pic of Sir Jeremiah, I wanted to do that. I wanted to ask myself, like, when are we going back to normal? That's the reason why we keep on saying there's this new thing called new normal, right? But the thing there is, if they don't understand what this means to us, it will be very difficult for us to shift them towards digitalization. Guys, with the plethora of digital capabilities that are available, understanding how some of these opportunities will actually benefit our businesses and even the people who are working for us, this is the first key and the first step for us to be able to move forward. We got to think big, but at the same time, we need to start small and identify those areas that will benefit us immediately. Sometimes here's the thing, when we talk about digitalization, when we talk about digital platforms, we would always think big, like literally big. But here's one thing. If you want to think big, and I want to say this, if you want to think big, you got to learn how to think small first. Again, if you want to think big, you got to learn how to think small first. What do I mean by that? Before thinking of the bigger plans, before thinking of the wonderful picturesque of digitalization, the first thing that we need people to understand is, why is it important? And when they start understanding why it is important, we need to let them be tooled. We need to let them be trained. That's where everything would basically start. Now we move on. Let's go to number 3, the third point that I'd like to share. Retooling of people, right? I'd like to share this really quick to you. And yes, I know some of you are going to be asking, sir, can we have a copy of your PowerPoint later on? The answer to that is definitely no. No, I'm just kidding, right? Okay, the answer to that is definitely yes, but I just want you to take note of those important points that I hope would be able to help you. Okay, so retooling people is actually something that is very important, right? We need to let people understand that right now, there are already people we call digital natives. And who are these digital natives? Digital natives are these people who have grown on iPads, Facebook, smartphones, YouTube, and so on. There are people who are basically understanding the reality that's happening right now, that in order for us to go globally, whether that is related with fashion, food, entertainment, everything is actually happening digitally. Everything is happening with the fast movement and the fast changes that go along with digitalization. We must understand that in order for people to shift, we must retool them, right? There are a lot of people who would say, why not say retrain them? Why not say recalibrate them? Why not say re-educate them? I say retooling is actually a different one. Why? Because these people that we have in our companies, they are generally equipped already. But what we need right now is to give them an added tool that would enable them to cope with the challenges of digitalization, to cope with the challenges of the changes that have been coming and will still come because of digitalization. These are things that we need to bear in mind, right? Now let's continue. Let's go further, right? When we talk about retooling people, we must remember this. Remember that employees, all right, are not the same, and that we people need update and upgrade. The Z generation can easily cope and adopt with the changes of digitalization, but not employees are on that page, right? I remember here in our company, when we were literally, okay, this is literal, right? When we were introducing Zoom, when we were introducing Voom, when we were introducing other online platforms, people were like going nuts on how they're going to imagine just the thought of logging in, just the thought of creating their accounts. It was actually causing them to panic. What's the reason behind that? Because we haven't given them the right tools yet. We have not given them the right skills, and we have not given them the right development yet in order for them to cope and adjust with all these changes. Number 4, capitalize on technology for people. A lot of people would always say this. Nowadays, with digitalization taking place, they would say, we need to capitalize, we need to invest on technology. But at the end of the day, you come to think about it. Why do we capitalize on technology anyway? Why do we invest on technology? Why do we invest on digitalization? At the end of the day, we are investing in all these simply because we want people to be able to use them. If people are not going to be able to use them, if people are not going to be able to make the most out of our investments and capitalization in technology and digitalization, then our investments are definitely going where? Nowhere. When we capitalize on technology, we must bear in mind we are doing it for people. We must bear in mind that people, by principle and by technicality, they are still part of technology. As it says here, passionate leaders, they often want digital to be implemented yesterday. As soon as they wanted to have it implemented. But a successful digital change involves the wider organization, and getting their buy-in is critical to implementing and sustaining the change. We got to bear in mind that fixing the basic aspects of day-to-day working, be it a stable website, a mathematical model that does the job, processes that are well-defined and understood, or projects that are planned properly, it is a prerequisite to having a conversation about digital future. And when we say having a conversation about the digital future, who do we talk with? Who do we communicate with? We are talking about people. It will always involve people. So when we capitalize on digitalization, when we capitalize on technology, remember, we are doing it for people, not in the concept of technology alone, right? Let's continue. Number 5, prioritize initiatives correctly, right? As cross-functional teams identify initiatives that are relevant to the business, remember this, it is important to prioritize them based on their value, time to impact, and effort required to achieve outcomes. The perfect blend of these will depend on the business. Now, take note, it says generally 2 or 3 quick wins, right? As it says here, simple projects with high impact will work well to build momentum in the organization, followed by those that are high impact but may take longer. What are examples of what are examples of simple projects with very high impact? Number 1, as I've mentioned, when we retool people, this is actually something small. This is actually something simpler. But when we talk about retooling people, and these people that we have retooled are already able to adopt and accept the changes, it will bring bigger impact to our organizations. It will bring bigger impact to our respective industries. Thus, prioritization is very important. So you go digital, but when you go digital, you need to do mapping first. What's the first thing to be done? What's the second thing to be done? What are the processes? What are the procedures that we need to consider in order for us to be successful in this digitalization plans that we are having? Continuing with this, number 6, define a roadmap and redefine if necessary, right? Now it says, crafting a roadmap or a series of all projects that will collectively create a digital change is an important management and communication tool. It says here, the roadmap helps flesh out details, such as which projects can run in parallel, which are dependent on each other, the nature of skills and the types of resources required, and it's a critical piece in any transformation program, right? So as we said, and as I mentioned earlier, mapping is very essential and is very, very important when it comes to digitalization. Identify which part of the departments would actually be needing it, right? Which part of the works would actually require it? Which ones will need it first? And once you've identified that, put them in perspective, put them in priority in order for us to know which one should go first and which one should go last. Moving on. Number 7, define outcomes and tie them back to the goals. In digitalization, one thing that I would like to share with you, I think it wasn't mentioned earlier, but one of the majors that I actually took is actually computer programming. So I took my major in computer programming. Now, whenever you make a program, the first important thing that you need to remember is this. What is the end goal of the program that you're making? What should be the final output? What should be the expected outcome coming from the program that you're making? Now, when you make the program and you have finally done the program after going through all the algorithms, after going through different programming languages and identifying which one would fit best the project that you're developing, the next thing that you need to do is, once the output is there, check it back if it actually coincides with the expected output. Actual output versus expected output. Are the outputs meeting the requirements that you have set prior to you developing the program? Are the outputs meeting the expected outputs that you wanted to have from the beginning? Tie them back, right? The thing there is, sometimes when we talk about digitalization, we settle with the thought that this is already okay. The output is already fine. Yes, it's true. It could be fine. It would be okay. But the bigger question you got to ask yourself is, did it meet the goals that we've set at the beginning of the program? Did it meet the goals that we have set at the beginning of the project? If not, revisit the program, revisit what you have done in order for you to tie back the final output with the target outputs that you had in mind at the beginning, right? Now, that's basically something that we need to remember, okay? Now, let's have this. It says, knowing what digital means to your organization and earning your right to implement this is a critical first step. The approach to that needs to be cross-functional and customer-centric. Transformation often works when big thinking or a vision and a roadmap is complemented by small steps with recognition and courage to change course when needed, right? That's a final thought. That's actually what that I want to share related with digitalization, okay? Now, from digitalization, we must understand that this actually goes hand in hand with other areas and other factors. And what is that, right? I think most especially in the hotel industry, in the tourism industry, the thought of maintaining and ensuring that the supply chain is actually maintained is very essential. Now, this time, allow me to share some quick thoughts and inputs related with supply chain management, right? Okay, I think all of us are already familiar with this, okay? Having all of you related with your doctorate right now and being in the hotel and tourism industry, I believe that all of you are familiar with the components of the supply chain management system. We've got planning, sourcing, making, delivering, returning, and enabling. Just for a few more minutes, allow me to share with you some salient points that we have observed here in our company. Now, you might say, sir, can you relate to our industry because you come from the academic? Okay, just let me give you a quick thought of how our company goes. Our company, we basically cater to international students. All the students that we have are coming from Europe, Middle East, Southeast Asia. So they are like Koreans, Japanese, Thais, Cambodians. We have French students. We have Arab students here in our school. But one of the services that we offer to them is we offer them the package of studying stress-free. That means their accommodation is well taken care of. That also means that they're able to study without thinking of the hustles and buzzles of the surroundings that they have. So everything is basically provided for them. Now, when the pandemic struck, remember during the first 2 or 3 days, during the first 2 or 3 days of the pandemic or the time that the quarantine status was implemented, I remember we had major challenges when it came to supply. Why? Number one, paralisadong transport eh. We cannot go out. We cannot actually go and do market, right? We cannot go out and buy stuff. And during that time, in our facility alone, in our building, we were having about 300 students back then and 400 active employees. So 700 yun. Imagine the challenge of feeding 700 people in one building, right? I think all of us are familiar with this. In supply chain management, there are basically sub-pointers that we need to remember and we need to talk about. These are some of the sub-pointers related with supply chain management, but I will not be focusing on this. This one, I'm going to be sending to you and I'm going to be providing you a copy of it for your references. But what I'd like to talk about is, how did we maintain our management system? How do we intend to still maintain our post-COVID-19 supply chain management? Let's continue. Number one, right? First, when the pandemic struck, the first thing that we did is to actually identify the vulnerabilities present in the chain, right? So during that time, the first thing that we needed to do is, what were the immediate needs? What were the things that we needed to have? What were the things that we needed to have within our facility? That's the first thought that we needed to deal with. Good thing, right? Good thing, us as buyers, we basically have suppliers, and our suppliers were very, very swift in responding to our needs. But this is the first thing. Whether this is during the pandemic or even after the pandemic, one thing that we learned is this: we need to understand and identify the vulnerabilities present in the chain. Understanding where the risks lie so that your organization or company can protect itself may require a lot of digging, but risk mapping is essential in ensuring that you can maintain the continuity in the supply chain. So dapat dito sa part na to, when we talk about supply chain management, the first factor that we need to do is the assessment of the areas where we are vulnerable, the assessment of the areas that are actually critical and that needs immediate maintenance, the assessment of the areas that needs immediate attention. And I think it's basic. In any industry like us, the most important supply that we needed to deal with during that time was actually food. Yun yung una namin kinailangan. We needed to sustain the needs of our people. After that, we needed to plan for logistics. We needed to plan for the others that would definitely maintain our operations, despite those 700 people being locked in one facility or one building, right? So imagine how tough would that be? But how did it actually work? What helped us is we needed to identify what we needed first and what is essential to us. Next, diversification of supply base, right? The obvious way to address heavy dependence on one medium or high-risk source is to add more sources of supply, right? During that time, and during the time of our operations back then, kami kasi, very loyal kami sa mga suppliers namin. If they're able to meet our requirements, if they're able to meet our standards, if they're able to meet our demands, we also ensure that we maintain our loyalty to our suppliers. But we realized during that time, it doesn't work that way pala. During the time of the pandemic and during the time of emergencies, it doesn't work that way. We needed to diversify our supply base, right? So yung mga supplies na kailangan namin for food, yung mga supplies na kailangan namin for vegetables, meat, even water supply, yung mga main suppliers namin, hindi na sila nakakapag-supply back then. Bakit? Limited din silang pumilos. Hindi din sila makalabas ng mga bahay nila. So what did we do? We needed to look for more people who could help us out. It's true. It pays to be loyal. It gives benefit when we are actually loyal. But we must also understand that in cases of emergency, we should also have a diverse supply base. People who are going to be able to meet the needs, the immediate needs that we have at the moment. Next part. Immediate inventory and stockage, right? So remember this, okay? It says here that we basically need to understand that we need to establish a regular, basically routine in terms of inventory, stockage, and replenishment, right? During that time, medyo nung tinitingnan ko na yung systems namin within the building. Dati-dati kasi, nung wala pa yung pandemic, parang feeling ko overflowing ang supply ng lahat, right? Feeling ko laging sobra-sobra lahat. Sobrang supplies ng food, sobrang school supplies, sobrang office supplies before the time of the pandemic. Then I realized na nagkaroon ng pandemic, ang bilis pala. ang bilis palang mag-run out ng supplies, whether that is food, whether that is office supplies, ang bilis. And that's when I realized na, we need to establish systems that have to do with inventory and stockage in a manner that is actually more effective and more efficient. What is the key to this? In our case, the key is we needed to be very, very alert, identifying the needs, and then immediate inventory and stockage played a very, very important role in our operations. Now, let's continue. Pagpatuloy natin siya. Innovate and develop swifter processes, right? I think all of us, okay, we have learned that during the pandemic caused people to be more particular with exposure. We prefer faster and swifter services. Dati, di ba? If you could remember that, before the pandemic, may kakain sa restaurant. Yung mga kakain sa restaurant, order lang ng kape, right? Hindi nga kumain, umorder lang ng coffee. 2 oras na nagstay dun sa restaurant. O kaya umorder lang ng French fries sa McDonald's, regular pa. 5 oras nagstay para makipag-chika at mag-networking doon sa mga pinag-i-stayan nila. But when the pandemic struck, right? When the pandemic struck, what happened? Lahat ang gusto mabilisan. Yung tipong papasok ka pa lang sa restaurant, pag may narinig ka na ubo, may gumano lang, kating-kati ka nang lumabas. Yung kulang na lang, hindi mo na makuha yung order mo. Tapos pag inabot yung order mo, nagmamadali ka. We all wanted processes to be faster. We all wanted processes to be swifter. And in the supply chain, we must remember this. We must learn how to identify people who could meet our demands in a manner that is faster and in a manner that is swifter. We needed to innovate and make processes simpler and faster in a way that it's going to be more convenient for our clients, right? Yung kung pwede nga lang, isang press lang isang pindot lang, readily available na yung mga kailangan ng mga clients natin at ng mga customers natin. So innovate, develop swifter processes for the convenience and at the same time, the safety of our clients. Number 5, promote and practice transparency at all times. Dati kasi, in our department, right, most especially in my case, so there are people who are working under us. Now, these people who are working under us, kadalasan, if they can manage things, if they can deal with things by themselves, ang gagawin nila, they will do their best to deal with it by themselves. To the point na minsan hindi na nakakarating sa'yo. But during the time of the pandemic, we realized that transparency is very essential and it's very, very practical in terms of ensuring that you can maintain your operations. We required our suppliers, even our customers, our vendors, we needed to inform them that if there is something wrong with the supplies and you think you can't meet it, let us know so we could act swiftly. So usually a day before the orders would actually be delivered to us, if they can't deliver, they would start informing us. They would start calling us and they would start letting us know what are the problems and the challenges that they are facing. In the supply chain, we must remember that transparency is very critical. The transparency in terms of meeting or not meeting demands and standards alongside the effects and repercussions will push everyone to act accordingly, right? So ito yung ginawa natin. We tell them that if they're not going to be able to meet our demands, if they're not going to be able to meet our requirements, then we will have to go to other suppliers, and that would mean that they will lose their income, right? And in the same manner, we also tell our clients, we also tell our customers, our students, basically, that if there are things that we cannot deliver, we will have to inform them and let them know about it. These are very important things that we need to maintain in the supply chain. Transparency and making sure to it that everybody know what is happening is essential. Here, optimize, maximize, minimize. 3 very, very simple words that I hope we could put into practice. Optimize results, right? Maximize what we call your resources. And finally, minimize damages and wastage, right? Alam niyo po, itong panahon ng pandemic, sobra yung dami ng naituro niya sa amin. It has taught us a lot of things. Before, alam niyo yung mga resources namin, talagang parang it was just coming in and out. But during the time of the pandemic, we learned how to keep our resources and make the most out of whatever resources we have. We needed to even tell and encourage our people that they need to be in their optimum performances. Yung dati-rati na parang kalma lang sila, relax lang sila palagi, we needed to push them a bit more to bring us optimum results, right? We needed to maximize every single resource that we have. And ang pinakamalala doon, we needed to minimize din yung mga wastage and damage na pwedeng magawa in our company. These are very important things related with this. And point number 7, the last point that I'd like to share in the supply chain management, we gotta learn from insights and experiences, right? Our company is basically a member of the Baguio Tourism Council. It's a member of the Baguio English Schools Association. It's a member of the Department of Tourism and a lot of organizations in the city. What is the benefit of that? The major benefit of it is, instead of us experiencing the challenges, instead of us going through the challenges, we learn from the insights and experiences of other people. We learn from those that they have actually went through. We learned from all the things that they have gone through during the pandemic. And that saved us a lot, right? Sabi nga nila, there's a very, very famous saying that says, a good man learns from his mistake, but a wise man learns from the mistakes of others. And this is something very important for all of us. Something that all of us should bear in mind and should put in mind. Never ever shrug off insights and experiential lessons from others, or even those that were learned internally. Sabi niya nga dito learn from mistakes and never do it again. And this is one thing that I actually got from a very, very wise mentor I had before. Lagi nga sinasabi sa akin, sabi niya, Ruben, remember this. Experience is a very expensive teacher. And that's one thing that we needed to put in mind. That's a thing that we kept in our heads during the time of the pandemic, right? So these are points that I wanted to share with you, right? I think I have already consumed my time for this particular talk. And I wanted to talk a bit more about human capital and maintaining human capital. But maybe just some quick thoughts lang. And just let me give a run through related with human capital. Just to share with you, our company during the time of the pandemic actually went through a lot of processes because we needed to deal with our employees. Imagine this. During the time of the pandemic, when the national government announced that we need to send our students out from the country already within a time frame of 72 hours, from 300 students who are actively studying in our institution, almost 60% of them left the country. So imagine yung natira sa amin during that time, kulang-kulang lang sa mga 70 students. And we were maintaining 400 employees. 400 employees. Imagine how tough that was. So what did we do? We offered certain actions for our employees to avail of, right? One important thing that we need to remember, and we have learned during the time of the pandemic, is this. Learn how to have immediate actions and plans to be offered to your people. Again, learn how to have immediate plans and actions to be offered to your people. At the end of the day, when your employees do not have anyone to run to, ang babalikan at babalikan nila ay ikaw as an employer. And when you have nothing to offer them, when you have nothing to give them, when you have no solutions to lay on the table, it is indicative of the leadership that you have. So first point that I would like to share related with human capital, right? Always make sure to it that you have a plan. You have solutions to present to your employees. Number two, right? Make sure to it that your plans are actually carried out, right? During the time of the pandemic, I think siguro yung iba sa inyo dito na nag-work, can you give me a raising of hands? Who among you here were working before the pandemic and even during the pandemic? Give me a virtual raising of hands, please, so I can just have a quick idea kung ilan sa atin dito yung nagtatrabaho, right? Okay, marami-rami rin, right? There, okay? So I believe most of us were actually working during and before the time of the pandemic. But then do you remember, okay, naalala nyo ba? Sige, babaan nyo muna yung mga kamay ninyo. Do you remember during that time nung nangyari yung pandemic, di ba meron yung mga kinailangan na tumigil muna mag-work? Ano naging solution ng government? Ang sinabi ng government, ayuda para sa lahat. Yan, yung tumataginting na 5,000 pesos na camp. Camp 1, Camp 2. Alam nyo kami, we were so excited for that kasi sabi namin at least kahit paano may help kami na makukuha from the government. But you know what happened? To our discouragement, hindi nabigyan yung mga employees ng company namin. Right? Ang naging reflection tuloy nun, sabi ng mga employees namin, hindi nyo naman ata kasi kinary out yung requirements ng Labor Department. But we did. It's just that the Labor Department was so particular and so critical in identifying who are they going to be giving the incentives or the benefits to. Second thing, when you provide solutions, make sure to it that you can carry them out. Right? And ako, I'll be very, very honest and I'll be very proud. While some other companies have had cases filed against them during the time of the pandemic for illegal dismissal, for constructive dismissal in their companies. 2 years now, we never had a case, not a single one. For what reason? Point number 3. After carrying out plans, we maintain communication with our employees. Again, maintain your communication with employees. Make them feel and let them see their worth and let them understand that despite the pandemic and despite everything that the company is going through, they are still the most important capital that any business and any organization should have, right? So kami ngayon, what we do, we send them emails, we send them messages, and the messages sometimes are not even related to work. Yung mga simple reminders na, hi teacher, good morning. This is a friendly reminder that you need to wash your hands every now and then. Yung mga bagay na ganun. And this actually causes our employees to realize that we care for them, that they are our number one priority. Never, ever let your people, never, ever let employees feel that they are not important to you. Never let them feel that they are not meaning anything to you. 3 simple points. I wanted to elaborate more, but allow me to share these things. 3 important points related with human capital. Always present plans and solutions to your members and to your workers. Number 2, carry out what you commit. Number 3, communicate with your people and make sure to it that they will feel they are valued, they will feel their importance to the organization. The pandemic has brought us a lot of inconveniences. It brought us a lot of challenges. It brought us a lot of difficulties. But one thing that we see and one thing that we learn and are still learning during this time of the pandemic is the fact that when we work together, when we put things in order, we will be able to get out even from the most difficult challenges and circumstances that we have. For all of you, for all of us, this is going to be my parting words. No matter what happens, let us always remember that we are capable and we will get out from every difficult circumstance posed before us. With that being said, I'd like to say God bless you all and congratulations for organizing such a wonderful training and seminar like this. I am so humbled with the opportunity that you've given to us to be part of this wonderful gathering. Even though it's virtual, Thank you so much. God bless you all. And sa duludo ko sa inyo, mga students ng PWU, maraming salamat.
And that is Mr. Ruben Aslor. Thank you very much, sir, for discussing your topic about strategic recovery. I agree that digitalization and technology adaptation, as well as retooling human resources, plus your other inputs, will lead us to economic success, especially during this global challenge brought by the COVID-19 pandemic. Again, sir, maraming salamat po. So before we proceed with the next part of the program, let me acknowledge the top 10 institutions who registered to this webinar. So thank you very much to University of Makati, University of Rizal System, Pangasinan State University, Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Pasig, Dr. Yangas College Incorporated. We also have participants from Davao Oriental State University, Data Center College of the Philippines, Cebu Institute of Technology, Bulacan State University, and Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Marikina. Maraming salamat po sa suporta. So ladies and gentlemen, this is to remind everyone to start using the chat box or the comment box in the FB Live and YouTube Live for your questions. The technical team will filter your questions to be asked during the panel discussion.
Thank you so much, Sir Eugene, for that. And yes, we are actually very viral. As of this moment, 2,165 comments and audiences are actually watching this particular live. And now we have come to the most awaited part as we bring in our economic experts to answer and exchange ideas in our open forum. May we humbly ask the presence again and turn on the cameras of our dear experts. Of course, Sir Aslor is already there. Mishakaina. Okay. Now, Sir Eugene will be asking the first question. Sir Eugene?
So this is the first question. I believe both of you have discussed the supply chain concept earlier. So this is my question for the both of you, Sir Ruben and Ms. Shakaina. So any segment in the supply chain, such as the plant, distributor, wholesaler, retailer, and customer, will be subjected to economic disruptions affecting the integrity of the human chain. The question here is, what can we do today in the future to immunize our local supply chain in cases of these partial disruptions? I think, sir, you're unmuted,
Yeah,
sir.
there you go. Okay, so maybe allow me to give my the first thought that I have in mind related with this question. First, is there such thing? I mean, it would be the validity of the question and the veracity of the question is needed to be verified first. Number one, is there such thing as immunity when it comes to situations like this? Right? That's the first thought that we need to think about. Is there such thing as immunity? I think the answer to that is none. There is no such thing as immunity in any case or in any situation. I would like to likely compare it with the case of COVID-19. Most of us here were already vaccinated, some even boosted, right? But if you're going to be taking a look at it, even yung mga ibang vaccines natin, marami yung mga na-vaccinate na, pero tinatamaan pa rin sila ng sickness. Why? Because there is no such thing as full immunity. It's the same when we talk about the supply chain, right? When we talk about the supply chain, walang way para masigurado natin that a certain portion of the supply chain would be immunized and fully be protected from the possibilities that could come from outside. Rather, allow me to share though, in one of the subjects that I'm teaching in strategic management, it is always say that we need to, number one, learn how to develop damage control strategies, right? Learn how to foresee the possible situations. Foresight is very, very important. Immaterial of any industry or any organization, or even when we talk about the parts of the supply chain management, you have to remember that foresight is very necessary. So what's the best piece of advice that I'm going to be giving? Go through every segment of the supply chain management system, and from each segment, identify the worst case scenarios that could arise. Do not just come up with one scenario, but literally with even the most unimaginable, and then from there, develop possible solutions. In this case, you may not be immunized, but at least you will be ready to deal with the situation. Gaya nga na sinabi nila, daig ng maagap ang masipag, right? So maging maagap ka, even before the situation comes, be ready for it. Readiness, foresight, this will definitely help you to deal with the situations and the problems that may arise.
All right. I secondly agree with Sir Ruben in his discussion. What I have observed, again, this is into micromanagement here or how we did it here in Baguio City and La Trinidad per se. What I've seen is that they've empowered local government unit to strategize a system that works for themselves muna, for their own. You cannot impose a system to everyone. Well, in fact, the system is not equivalent to their current situation. So allow me to describe to you what the farmers are doing here in La Trinidad. So as what I might have mentioned earlier, they have devised a way so that there is longevity on their products or in their produce. However, you cannot tell that naman to NCR province, right? We cannot tell that. We cannot also tell to our suppliers from Region 1 na mag-imbak kayo ng rice. And then when everything is okay, that's the time that we do it. No, you devise system that works for you, your micro entrepreneurs that are available within their limits. The thing is that immunization in our terms right now is case-to-case basis. Sabi nga ni Sir Ruben, marami na yung mga vaccinated. Ako, I got 2 vaccines already, tas nagka-COVID pa rin ako. I was boosted, nagka-COVID pa rin ako. Not because of my negligence, but because it may be not me, but I acquired it from someone who was not vaccinated, or, it's a case-by-case basis. So my take on that is that in order for you to immunize something, you have to also properly address muna what is the limits of what you can and cannot do. Yan lang po.
Thank you so much, Ms. Shakaina and Sir Ruben. Truly, I do agree with those answers. Risk management is very important. Know what will happen next, and then plan, at the very least, plan everything that could happen in the future. Sir Ruben, there is another question. Actually, this question was asked earlier for Ms. Shakaina, but we would like to know your inputs also with this particular question. The question is from Mr. Lumage. He asked, in rebuilding the Philippine tourism industry, how do you think can the practitioners in the field of tourism and the academic sector help in bringing back the tourism economic growth? Sir?
A very, very good question. Maybe allow me to share the experiences that I have been doing with, or the experiences I've had with the Department of Tourism, right? 2 years is no joke. Napakahabang period ng 2 years na yun. And for most of us, nandun yung point na tipong, anong ginawa ko in the period of 2 years? What did I do? Right now that the restrictions are being lifted, all of a sudden the government lifted border restrictions. Tourists are already starting to come in. From the time na naka-relax, quote-unquote, naka-relax tayo during the time of the pandemic. Ngayon, honestly, ang daming industries and sectors ang natataranta. Addressing that question, I would say that one way for the academe and the tourism sector to be able to help our tourism industry is yung tinatawag natin na retooling, right? Why do I say that retooling is very, very important? It's important that we are able to prepare kung paano natin i-deal yung mga bagong situations na dumarating ngayon. Yung mga bagong challenges na dumarating ngayon. Situations were not as free as it were before, right? The situations that we're encountering now are completely different from how they were before. And the thing there is, if we are not going to be able to cope and adjust with the demands of the new trends that we're going to be facing right now, we are not going to be able to help the tourism industry bounce back. Imagine, all right, yung mga tour guides natin, Okay, yung mga tour guides natin, to give an example. During the time of the pandemic, medyo na-relax ang bawat isa. And then all of a sudden, bumalik ngayon yung mga tourists. Pagbalik ng mga tourists ngayon, nag-avail sila ng mga tour packages. Nag-avail sila ng mga tour services. And then here we are, because we were kind of lax for a period of 2 years, we are not able to deliver the expected results and services that they are expecting from us. Anong mangyayari? Mawawala yung trust ng clients natin. Mawawala yung trust ng client base natin. Yung ating mga inaasam-asam na tourist na bumalik noon, anong mangyayari? Mababawasan yung confidence nila sa atin. So I think learning, equipping, retooling ourselves to still deliver the quality service, or maybe even beyond the quality of the services that we were offering before, this could actually be helping us in recovering and ensuring that we will be of help to the Department of Tourism and the tourism industry as well.
That's right, sir. Okay, so thank you, sir, for answering the question. And for our last question, so this is for the both of you po. Okay, so the question is, okay, this is from Miss Velasco. So what are your top 3 priorities, priority advice to our SMEs with regards to competitive advantage with sustainability?
Saya nun, ha?
So, Shek, may go first.
Alright, thank you, Sir Ruben. Sabi nila daw, ladies first. Sino bang lady dito? Well, anyway. Ma'am Evelyn, thank you for that wonderful question. Actually, I would like to copy paste what Sir Ruben have been highlighting with his discussion, retooling your individuals and people that is working with the tourism industry. I may say that yes, tourist guide, as for me as well, we have done some changes also in the industry and for ourselves as well. Ako personally, I have reskilled and learned knowledge, or let's say a skill that is only done virtually, or if not, something that is close that I am passionate on doing. Reskilling and retooling allows you to go beyond your capacity as a person. Sabi nga nila, you create limitless opportunity until you say that it's over for yourself. One is that retooling or reskilling, and another is probably never ever say that the end of the tunnel is there, because it's actually just the beginning of the tunnel. Sabi nga nila, if you go to Asin, you have to travel 3 days 2 nights because of the tunnel. But the thing is that this pandemic is not going to be over. This will be over soon, but we might not know if there would be another mutation of this virus in 10 years from now, or it might happen again. But the thing is that you just don't end at the end of the tunnel. There is always something beyond the tunnel. And the third could be, ako personally, I believe that you can embrace failure. I have fallen 100 times. And on the 101 time, I still stood up to embrace failure as you learn from it. And while you learn through it, you now become adaptive. Hindi ko na uulitin to kasi that's not the right way to do it. However, embrace those failure para malaman mo that it's not gonna end that way. I just want to give you a quick example kahapon. My mom asked me to buy something from the store, and the store was far. And there is a store that is nearer, but I do not know the route. Sabi ko, Ma, I'm not familiar with the route. Turuan mo ko how to get there. And my mom said, just go where the road is. So sabi ko, okay, ang lola mo nagpumunta. And I wasn't equipped. I was wearing something that I'm not comfortable, I came from work, so I was wearing something. I'm actually wearing heels. And then she said, yeah, you can go with it. Hanapin mo lang yung daan. And sabi ko, I wasn't equipped for this. As we are also with this pandemic, no one was equipped from this. But what we did is we became resilient. We made sure kung ano yung suot ko, dinaanan ko yon, and it was a hilly, stony, muddy steep na sabi ko, you know, you now know na, ganito pala yon. So next time, I will be more equipped when this happens. So when I came back, my mom said, oh, hindi ka nawala. Yes, but I wasn't equipped with this. Sana sinabi mo naka-heels ang lola mo, sabi ko. And she was just laughing and laughing and laughing. And it boils down to me understanding na this is unprecedented. Nobody wanted this. Nobody was equipped with this. Pero you go through it. Yun lang.
All right. So let me give my sense for this one. Okay. So we were asked basically what are 3 things that we could give to the SMEs, right? Which could be their advantage in order for them to cope after the pandemic. First thing, right? In this current trend that we are facing right now, I believe that the first requirement we need to do in order for us to have a competitive advantage is know what the demand is, right? Know what is in demand. Know what people want, right? So if you're going to be able to, you can talk about marketing and all those, but the basic of it is what is in demand amongst people? What do people want, right? You want SMEs to thrive. You want businesses to be alive even after the pandemic. First thing that you need to do, ano ba yung kailangan ng tao? Ano yung gusto ng tao? What particular products are wanted and are sought after by the people? May that be in the tourism industry? May that be in terms of consumption or whatever? May it be in the terms of services? Know what is in demand, right? Second factor, okay, number 2, right? The second factor is when you already know that the demand, the next thing you need to do is to know how to meet the demand, right? Alam mo nga yung demand, wala ka namang ginawa. You're an SME. You're running a business. You know what people want. You know what people are actually longing for and are actually wanting. Pero the thing there is, hindi mo naman ginagawa ng paraan para ma-deliver yung gusto ng mga tao. So what do? Find ways to deliver the demands of the people. Find ways to offer what the people are actually wanting to be given to them. And finally, when you actually deliver the demands, you will know that there are challenges that you're going to be facing. So what's the third point that I would like to share? Very simple. Overcome the challenges that are actually coming alongside the demands that were given to you. If you're going to be able to do that, then you're going to be able to cope and have a competitive advantage as an SME. Summarizing it, 3 points. Know the demands, deliver the demands, overcome the challenges in delivering and producing the demands of the people. Like us, an example. Before, we have been used to the conduct of classes on a face-to-face basis. All of us, we all know that. You know, the convenience of delivering classes with good facial expressions. People can actually listen to your tonality, which makes the classes more lively. But the thing there is it changed, right? So ano nang demand? Ang demand is kailangan marunong ka magturo online, right? Eh ngayon, may mga challenge that go along with it. Pero hindi naman pwedeng hindi mo i-overcome yung challenges eh. You have to overcome the challenges in order for you to deliver what product and what services you offer. In this case, we're talking about online classes. So we needed to train ourselves, we needed to retool ourselves in order for us to overcome the challenges brought about by the demands of the current situations. So those are 3 points that I wanted to share with you. Hopefully, they're helpful enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Ruben and Ms. Shakaina. It really strikes me the most, so much learning for this morning. Know holistically the demand of your consumers, your customers. And what Ms. Shakaina said earlier that really strikes me the most is follow where the road is because no one is prepared. Just follow where you want to be. Anyway, I would like to acknowledge one comment in the Facebook Live that says, in urban areas, the penetration number of computer literacy is higher than the people who are actually stays in rural urban. The government and IT players must reduce this and symbolizes and reduce this gap. That is from Mustafa Dakian. We keep on asking, we keep on mentioning retooling, digitalization, and digitalization and to improve ourselves in this pandemic. Actually, there is a very there is a very good question in the chat box from Mr. Ezekiel Tan. He actually posted this 2 or 3 times right now because he maybe he would really like to, and you both to answer the question. So the question goes like this: if embracing the change allows us to adapt better to change and become more flexible, why most of the people, particularly maybe in the Philippines, are afraid of change? Maybe that's the last question that we have right now. So Ruben, let me start from you.
Yeah, I find the question very, very challenging, in fact, right? Because we all know we need change, right? Sir, I'll give you a 2 thumbs up for the question that you've asked because it's actually very, very valid. We all recognize that change is inevitable. We all recognize that change is needed. But why is it then that people in the Philippines, why is it that people are actually afraid of change, right? Simply because we are afraid of the unknown.
Okay.
When we talk about change, we do not know what will happen after the change. When we talk about change, we do not know what will happen when we go through the process of the change. And the thing there is, change will entail a lot of things. It will entail pain. It will entail difficulties. Sometimes it even brings anxiety. And after all these things, you do not even know the result that it will bring, right? That's the reason why people are afraid of change. We are afraid of change because we are afraid of the unknown. But I think one good thing that was taught to us by this pandemic is we cannot always move in a space of certainty and security. One thing that this pandemic made us realize is nothing is really, really certain. So yes, we are afraid of change. We are afraid of the unknown, but we got to learn how to step towards the unknown. And by then, we will know how to deal with what is unknown. That's it.
Wow,
Right.
very good answer. Ms. Shakaina?
Kaya nga we are actually afraid of the things that we do not have in control with. We are afraid that the usual formula, finding the X in the formula, finding X and Y. Wag niyo na hanapin kung nasan yung X ko. Okay? We're in good terms. However, in taking the formula of identifying the value of an X, it's going to take time of seeing the value of X. But the thing is that we've lived now in a generation where we wanted instant gratification. So we do not live in our comfort zone. Komportable ka na dito eh. Hi na yung buhay ko dito. Why would I even go outside of that? So yun kasi something that you are in control, out of control with, ayaw mo. And people are also ako din, Jeremiah, I certainly agree with you. I haven't seen, and actually that is one part of it. You feel like you are doing something insignificant or invaluable if you embrace change. The thing is that that's just in your mind. But something that your mind does is to trick you for something that is not really result-oriented. Kasi tayo, we are solution finder people tayo. And since andun ka na sa solution na yun, comfortable ka na sa solution na to, dun ka na. So thank you for the question. Naalala ko tuloy yung ex ko. Wag na tayo magtanong ng ganitong mga tanong, ha? Just kidding.
A really difficult question, a very broad question, but well answered by Mr. Ruben and of course, Ms. Shakaina. Ladies and gentlemen, I know that we would like to keep our speakers with us to learn more, but unfortunately, that's the time that we've got. That's the end of our open forum. So much things to ask, but so little time. Sir Eugene?
Again, thank you very much, Sir Ruben and Ms. Shakaina. Okay, to all our experts. Okay, and now to proceed to provide us with the synthesis of what has transpired during today's webinar. May we invite one of the DHM organizers, Ms. Aiza Menyano.
Hello, good morning. Thank you so much, Sir Eugene. So for our quick synopsis for our webinar, our first speaker, Ms. Shakaina Cudao, entitled 3R, Rebuild, Rethink, Revive. So the topic aims to raise participants' understanding of emerging economic competitiveness post-pandemic and to identify economic recovery framework and implementation plans in the hospitality and tourism industry. Tourism continues to be one of the sectors hardest hit by the coronavirus pandemic, and the outlook remains highly uncertain. Some of the strategies to thrive in the hospitality and tourism industry that we should focus on is to reimagine the strategic architecture of the supply chain, build transparency and resiliency, extract cash and cost from our supply chain, create a competitive advantage with sustainability, and lastly, to drive agility and opportunities for growth through a digital supply chain. She also mentioned the iceberg tool for guiding systematic thinking that allows us to shift our perspective and see beyond the immediate events that everyone notices. It helps us to uncover the root causes of why those events happen. That's possible by looking at deeper level of abstraction within the system that are not immediately obvious. And according to our first speaker, there are challenges, but these challenges gives us opportunities to find resiliency. So for our second speaker, Mr. Ruben L. Aslor, talk about the strategic recovery through digitalization and keeping the supply chain. So during this pandemic, we need to have a shift. We need to think of other ways for us to move forward, and that is to acknowledge the need for digitalization. So we must be learning towards the fact and idea that at present, the world is shifting its market to digital platforms. So we emphasize digital is here to stay and grow. We need to know what digitalization means. If you gotta think big, we have to start small first. And third, we also need to retool people. Employees are not the same, and we need to update and upgrade. Fourth is we need to capitalize on technology for people. A successful digital change involves the wider organization, and getting their buy-in is critical to implementing and sustaining the change. Fifth is to prioritize initiatives correctly, as cross-functional teams identify initiatives that are relevant to the business. So it is important to prioritize them based on their value, time to impact, and the effort required to achieve outcomes. The sixth one is to define a roadmap and redefine if necessary. And for number seven is define outcomes and tie them back to the goals. So this keeps the initiatives relevant and helps them, the internal teams, to align on the shared objectives. So therefore, again, digital is here to remain, and it's just going to continue to grow. That's for the synopsis. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Aiza. To our most respected experts, Ms. Shekinah Cudao and Mr. Ruben Aslor, our heartfelt thanks for your support and for being present, not only in this webinar, but for the rest of the academe and the industry who needed this particular talk. Now, this is to present our certificate of recognition. And now for the certificate of recognition, the Philippine Women's University School of Hospitality Management Certificate of Appreciation is awarded to Ms. Shekinah A. Cudao as guest speaker for imparting her valuable insights and expertise during the virtual webinar entitled Post-Pandemic Economic Recovery, Strategies to Thrive in the Hospitality and Tourism Industry via Facebook and YouTube Live. Given this day, this 5th day of March 2022 at the Philippine Women's University, Taft Avenue, Manila, Philippines, signed by the Professor, Dr. Edgar M. Moreno, and of course, the Cluster Dean for School of Food Science and Technology, Tourism and Hospitality, Dr. Epramuel Jose L. Abellana. Again, maraming salamat po, Ms. Shekinah. And of course, the same certificate of appreciation is given to Mr. Ruben L. Aslor. Again, Mr. Ruben Aslor and Ms. Shakaina Cudao, buong puso pong pasasalamat from PWU. Sir Eugene?
And to give us the closing message, may we call one of the most passionate BHM students and the leader of this batch. Let us welcome the chairperson of today's webinar, Ms. Jackie Holst Diamante.
Thank you, Sir Eugene and Sir Abram. On behalf of the organizers in Advanced Managerial Economics, we want to express our appreciation to our guest speakers, Ms. Shakaina Cudao and Mr. Ruben Aslor, for imparting their knowledge and expertise in today's webinar. We also want to thank our Dean, Dr. Ephraim Prime Abellana, our Professor, Dr. Edgar Moreno, to the PWU faculty and staff for their support and for making this webinar possible. And last but not the least, to all of our participants, we thank you for sharing your time with us this morning.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jackie Diamante. This webinar will not be possible without your exceptional leadership and binding us together in one umbrella of resiliency and passion, together with our hardworking webinar officers and classmates of DHM students. Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat. And of course, special thanks to our course advisor, Dr. Edgar Moreno, for supporting us, not only with this webinar, but with our quest as future doctors and leaders of the economy. Buong puso pong pasasalamat, Dr. Edgar. Sir Eugene?
Okay, so flashed on the screen right now is the QR code for the evaluation on today's event. And the same link is now being added in the chat or the comment box as we speak. We would appreciate your feedback on this webinar. This will also be the basis for the sending of our participants' individual e-certificates. Please take note that we will give you until 10 a.m. tomorrow to accomplish the said evaluation form. Our evaluation team shall also update you via email for the said certificates. In case for any follow-up with regards to your e-certificates, please contact the email address also being shown on the screen.
Again, thank you everyone to our participants coming all over from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao, and to the rest of the world. We really appreciate you being here today. We really hope that you have enjoyed and absorbed all the learnings and discussions we had this afternoon. To our dearest guest speakers, again, Mr. Ruben and Ms. Shakaina, maraming salamat po for your shared insights. On behalf of the organizing team, we extend our deepest gratitude for your participation and live presence in this webinar. Once again, I am Chef Abram Emmanuel Peralta, and together with the PWU Doctors of Hospitality Management students, we thank you for being here today, and a reminder, we are always at your service. Sir Eugene?
Thank you, partner, and I am Mr. Eugene Emmanuel Benicta, who wishes you a resilient, safe, and a healthy day ahead. Now, let us sing the PWU hymn.